It's doing it. Okay. So here we are. It is Life of Libby book launch day. And I am so grateful that I am meeting with Janice Sykes Ross, who is from the Paul Robeson House and Museum. And I just thought it would be so appropriate for us to highlight this institution because Paul Robeson was someone that Libby really admired. She went to see him in concert. She talked about him in the book. And so I just would love to learn a little bit more about him and about the museum and share that with the folks that are watching. And I do want to share that the book hit #1 bestseller status on Amazon. So we're really excited that the word is getting out about Life of Libby. And I'd like to ask you, Janice, to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your connection to the museum.
So, good afternoon, Heather. It's so nice to be here with you. And I am the executive director of the Paul Robeson House and Museum, as you mentioned, and we are located right here in West Philadelphia. And it's such a pleasure to be here and talk with you and talk about Libby and her experience with Paul Robeson and, maybe just talk about some of the common things that they shared and some of their experiences that are highlighted in the book.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how did there come to be a Paul Robeson House and Museum?
Excellent question. So, Frances Austin, who was a librarian, and she is the founder of West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. And West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance manages and curates the Paul Robeson House and Museum. So that falls under the organization. And so about the I would say maybe toward 2000, the house was going into just receivership and it was being taken over by the city, or it had been taken over by the city. And so West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance purchased the house through hook and crook,
Yeah.
through a lot of fundraising. They didn't have any money, but Fran said she wasn't going to let that stop her when she realized that this great treasure was right here in West Philly. And so they purchased the house and then set on the road to renovating it. It was in a very dilapidated state, and they brought it back to what we have the pleasure. You can see some of the panels
Yeah.
behind me here, and that's part of the exhibit that we do here at the museum.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so Libby had told me about the museum, and she also told me some of her memories of Paul Robeson. And one of them, of course, was that he had a beautiful voice, and she went to hear him sing one time. And she also told me that there was a concert that she didn't go to, which took place in Peekskill, New York. Where he was supposed to perform, and the people local to the area actually attacked him and attacked people that were trying to go to the concert, and they weren't able to have it. And then he very courageously rescheduled the concert. They had 2,500 union workers come and help protect everyone, and they were able to do that concert. So can you tell us a little bit more about that event?
Yeah, one of the rooms that we have here at the museum is called the Social Justice Room. And in that room, we have pictures which really depict and gives an example of some of the brutalness of that Peekskill riot. Peekskill, for those that don't know, is about, I would say, an hour and a half to 2 hours outside of New York City. And Peekskill had become this really kind of almost like a Woodstock type of environment. It was this really rural kind of community, but a lot of artists, when they wanted to get out of the city, they would come to Peekskill, New York, and they had the little coffee shops there, and they would commune. So it was that kind of environment. And Pete Seeger, who was very well known then and known now, was one of the local artists that was there, and he wanted Robeson to come and perform. And so he put together this tremendous concert that was going to happen, did the publicity, and there was going to be close to about 2,000 people that
Wow.
were going to attend, coming from New York and, as far as Washington, D.C., from all over. And what happened that day was that the racists came down from the hills. There were people that were severely injured. They talked about killing Robeson. He barely got out with his life.
Mm.
There, you can see from the photographs that cars were turned over. There was people, cars that were set on fire. There was just blood everywhere. And the cops and people weren't able to call the police because either the police were sitting back and letting this happen, or there were police that were involved
Mm.
in that uprising and that riot. And so it really was just a terrible experience that happened. But
Mm.
courageously, as you said, Robeson and the committee and Pete Seeger and everybody put together the concert the following month. And they did actually have that concert. It wasn't as many people as
Mm.
before, but he went on. He said, I'm not going to let this stop me.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so the concert that Libby saw, that actually happened after the one in Peekskill, New York. And she said that Paul Robeson did not do many more concerts after that. And I was wondering if you could tell us more about, when and why he stopped performing and what he did for the rest of his life.
Yeah, well, he was getting older. His wife passed away, who was his manager, his
Oh.
confidant, and she was just more than a wife. She was everything. And
Mm.
she passed away in 1966. And he came to, 1965, excuse me. And he came to Philadelphia to live permanently in 1966. And the house that was purchased was really his sister's house, Marion Forsythe. And
Mhm.
so that was her house that she lived with her husband, Dr. Forsythe. And she was an educator, that, and she taught at a school that was about 2 blocks from here.
Mhm.
And so when he lived in New York for a while with his son and his daughter-in-law, but they had such busy lives. They were traveling all the time. He was left alone. And by now he's getting older.
Mhm.
Um, he's close to 70. He's getting, he's feeling like he wants to retire,
Mhm.
as many of us do when we get to be
Great.
70. And he's slowing down. He felt like he had done so much, but he wanted a more kind of tranquil environment. And so he came to live in Philadelphia,
Mm.
and almost in secret. A lot of people didn't know that he was here. His older sister was very protective of who came to see him here at the house, so that he would get the rest that he needed. He would get the medical attention. He would get the care.
Mhm. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up his wife, and I know you mentioned that you wanted to talk about her a little bit. It actually reminds me of Libby and her husband because they were peace and justice activists together. Like if you talk to people that knew Libby, they knew Libby and Mort because he was involved in also in organizing for peace and justice. So that partnership is such a source of strength, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the way the Robesons were. I mean, Eslando, today I really reference them as Michelle Obama and Barack, right? So if Robeson was to speak somewhere and if someone had that engagement and he couldn't show up, people would say, well, can Mrs. Robeson come? Can
Mm.
Eslanda? And she
Wow.
would come and speak on his behalf. And again, we're talking in the 30s and 40s, where women normally took a back seat and you hardly hear anything about them. But she was such a force. And so this year, as part of the exhibit that we're doing, is we're honoring the women that influenced Robeson's life,
Mhm.
and especially Islanda.
Mhm.
And so it's really quite fantastic exhibit that we're going to be putting together. And we're learning a lot more about her contribution and Marion's contribution and his mother, which you don't hear that much about, Robeson's mother.
Oh, wow. Well, I want to come see that when it's ready.
Absolutely, you're going to come.
Okay, good. So one topic I wanted to bring up, Libby was very interesting. I mean, she lived through the Red Scare, and it was actually difficult for her to say out loud and to have in the book. And you know, spoilers, but she was at one time a member of the US Communist Party. And the reason that she was involved in that party, what she told me, is that was the party that was working on racial justice issues. That was the party that was working on workers' rights. They were they were working on all the progressive issues that she cared about. And so that's where she needed to be at that time. And one of the things that she mentioned to me is that Paul Robeson and his wife took a trip to the Soviet Union many years ago, and that when he came back, he said that he felt free for the first time there. And she said some people thought that he and his wife might have also been part of the party, but they never confirmed or denied that. So I just wanted to get your perspective on all of that.
Yeah, again, in the social justice room where you must come and see the exhibit, we talk about this. We talk about their many travels abroad and their activism that they were involved in abroad as much as they were domestically. They were in Africa fighting against colonialism. They were fighting against apartheid when we had never even heard of the word apartheid or what was going on in South Africa. And so in front of the Un-American Activities Committee hearing that happened, they called both Paul Robeson and Islanda to testify in front of the committee. And most people don't realize that they called them both. And they seized both of their passports because she was just as involved, even maybe more so abroad as he was in terms of their activism. And when Robeson and Islanda both were in Russia, Robeson talks about in his book, that is the first time that he felt like a human being. He was very admired by the Russian people. He could dine after his performances. He could go into the front door and sit down in a restaurant and be greeted and eat with other individuals. And he talked about the comparison here in the US of how he would have to go in the back door, through the kitchen or a side alley, do this beautiful performance, and then would have to leave. He wasn't able to go to a restaurant and sit down with some of his other colleagues or people that had performed with him. And so that was, demeaning and hurtful and sad. And in Russia, he wasn't treated that way. And so one of the things that they did is because of what you just said about the Communist Party, he was in favor of rights for the working class. He was in favor of civil rights and justice. He was one of the first people, long before Dr. King, long before Malcolm X, that was talking about civil rights and fighting for civil rights in this country and writing about it. And so all of these things really made him a target. And one of the things that I tell the students when they come to visit the museum, and as I say, tell me, who is your most famous person? And they'll name Beyonce, Michael Jackson, Taylor Swift. And I said, okay, that was the notoriety of Robeson 5 times over.
Wow.
So when he spoke, he got attention. And so part of that was to really silence him and to demean the Communist Party, to talk about that he was not American, that he was giving away trade secrets, all of these different things that they were accusing him and Islanda of. And he never confirmed nor denied that he was a communist. And he thought that it was un-American for them to ask him. He said, it's no different than you asking me if I'm Democrat or Republican.
Wow. Well, I learned a lot more about Paul Robeson today, and his wife, Eslanda. So thank you for sharing all of that. Is there anything else that you want to tell us today about Paul Robeson or the museum?
Well, one of the things that we've been so ardently working on here, and along with what we call the Robeson Alliance, which is an organized group of, um, could be whether other museums or other institutions that hold up the legacy of Robeson. And there are even some institutions that we connect with abroad. And
Hmm.
what we've been talking about is really making the name of Robeson a household name
Mhm.
to honor his birthday. Here in the state of Pennsylvania, we're getting ready to put into legislation that April 9th will be known as Robeson's birthday. And so I think what you're doing, talking about Robeson in the book, as well as talking about him today, is really getting the word out about what a great hero he was. He
Yeah,
wasn't just an African American hero, he was a hero for all people.
yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much. It was so wonderful talking to you, and I'm so excited to come visit the museum.
Thank you.